for formal introductions playing on the pit, spawning in the northeast side. It is part one of the Spanish duo Vortex, spawning in the north, playing as the color yellow, and the Rus, a civilization near and dear to my heart. It is Lucifron. They are going up against the 3D clan Anatan, playing as the Delhi, spawning in the south, and in the west is 3DB as the Rus. So Baron, we got a little Rus Delhi mirror action going on.
Absolutely, and I think the biggest question is here is going to be how the Rus players approach their bounty. And you can already see a sort of difference here because Lucifron went out with 2 villages on that hunting cabin, but 3DB was really concerned about getting that second scout earlier, and he went with 4.
Yeah, that
And
is
it's
interesting.
a,
A lot
it's a
of
really neat sort of. Sorry, go ahead.
these
Um,
Rus build orders that we've seen, maybe not so much on the pit, but on different 1v1 matchups and different things like Dry Arabia or Lipany, sometimes you'll see some of these hunting cabins actually cut into the trees. Just means those scouts are a little bit more delayed, but both B and Lucifron choosing not to do that. But on the pit, you still get good hunting cabins. Lucifron in the yellow having a hunting cabin of 33 a minute, and B getting 31. So, and that's without even bounty hitting 100 yet. So these are going to be some spicy hunting cabins as the game goes on.
Absolutely. And obviously, the whole point of the way that we approached this was the fact that he wanted to pick up on the sheep and rally them to the hunting cabin. But as a result, he doesn't have food under his town center. So all those villagers are really gonna, yeah, he's moved over to shopping stragglers now. A little unfortunate there, and but he picked up a humongous amount of bounty as a result of that. He's already on 175, as you can see.
Yeah, one of the nice things about not having caster mode for 2v2s means we can get to the bounty that much quicker. And you're right, Lucifron on 175. It was really nice in the middle, in between Anatan and B, that there were a couple deer patches essentially right next to each other. So not only are that easy bounty for B to get, but could lead to a spicy second town center if the Rus wanted to do that. And most Rus builds, as far as meta goes in a 1v1 setting anyway, is second town center pretty much almost immediately.
Yeah, it just is a really strong way to approach the game. Lucifron just deciding not even to fight for that wolf, by the way. He accepts. Um, by the way, I'm not sure if I observed this, but both players did go 3 scouts. Just a quick observation there. You make 1 scout when you start from the town center, and of course you make another from the hunting cabin.
Yeah, that's pretty typical as far as Rus builds go. And another thing that is also pretty common as Rus builds go, Kremlin coming up for 3DB, and it looks like these Delhi players, both Anatan and Vortex that you can see here, Tower of Victory coming out for both of them, and Lucifron going with the Kremlin. So we're still in that mirror format. It seems like both of these players just kind of copying each other.
Absolutely. On the other hand, Anatan interrupted the deer patch that Lucifron was attempting to take. And but not for long. Everything works out. On this side, of course, what do you think of the mirror itself? Yeah, because Delhi v Rus, pretty standard way for both of these sets, and you completely understand why they were picked on pit. Rus with the heavy, wood density really coming up clutch, lots of hunt for, and obviously the 3 sacred sites laid out in nice and neutral positions, which is where you want to be as Delhi, right? Not on maps like High View, where one of the sacred sites is pushed all the way into the other person's corner and makes it difficult to fight for something like sacred site victory. But do you expect to see, similar 1-on-1 builds coming out from Delhi on both sides, or do you think that there's going to be a more sort of targeted, you make 1 unit, I'll make the other?
I see a lot. That's a good question. I see a lot in 2v2 games where whatever the civilization happens to be good at, or whatever their best unit is where they end up going. And you can see 3DB is doing that on the southwestern side of the map. He's adding in his first stable a little under 5 minutes into the game. So one of the things that the Rus have that a lot of other civs don't, well, besides the French, of course, is the ability to make those knights in feudal age. So we could see 3DB make a lot of knights just to combat some of the deli coming from the other side. And Anatan, knowing on the south end in the red, he knows that Lucifron is probably going to go for knights as well, just because his teammate is. So he's going with a barracks almost immediately. And one of the things that I love to see from Anatan, because this is something that I watched him first do in Warchief Club weeks and weeks ago, is he does such a good job with his Scholar micro. He's, as soon as that barracks comes up, that Scholar just goes in there, gets a couple spearmen out, gets the upgrade, gonna make sure that if Lucifron does have any knights, that they're gonna be repelled in the opposite direction. And one thing to say about the map, also with the pit, it's such an easily wallable area. You know, we see this big red line on the bottom end of the minimap where Anatan is already going to be starting to wall with his spearmen, some scouts over here from Vortex, trying to make sure he doesn't get that wall as complete as possible. But a little difference in shift from Delhi builds here. Vortex on the opposite side going for 2 blacksmiths. Anatan chose a military production building in the stable instead of going for a second blacksmith. And that makes Vortex react with an archery range. And as we see, first archer coming in for Vortex, hopefully gonna help him out. And one of the things that we do have to say with the Kremlin is we have ourselves little gremlins. Obviously, Lucifron going with the Kremlin, hitting that button to get the militia, got those gremlins fed after midnight, so they are getting pissed off. They're going to be able to take some hits on this early night. So now that we're seeing feudal age army compositions start to develop in terms of map control, Vortex has got to make a lot more archers than this, huh?
Absolutely. Quick interest. It was interesting the way that he played, because he delayed making, like, dropping that production just enough for him to be able to react proactively. And you have to admit, the archers countered Kremlins.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Those,
it's useful. It's really useful to have them around.
yeah.
If the other players making that.
Yep, those militias still light infantry, so archers are going to be doing a good job on them. It looks like knight counts for both players looks somewhat equal, but the difference is B's got more gremlins than Lucifron. Lucifron hit that militia button maybe a little too early, and remember, with these militia, I'm going to hover over them here. Militia have a little bit of extra attack against cavalry, so it's 6+6, but the archers are going to be able to make good work on them, making B and Anatan back up. But I feel like this was really well orchestrated by B, because the only thing he did, he pulled his knights up front just to delay that little bit of time so Anatan's spearmen can come up, get some walls, get this easy sacred site in the middle. And we all know from Delhi, whether you're in a 1v1 setting or a 2v2 setting, you get those sacred sites, that propels you to win the game.
I'm not sure that much was accomplished, however. The Kremlins have died, and the problem is, again, the superior army composition and the fact that the wall segments weren't fully built. Just, yeah, now Anatan is making archers, but the thing is, archers scale with numbers. They scale really well with numbers, because obviously ranged units, they can all fire on the same unit at the same time, so they multiply much more effectively than melee units, which kind of have to cluster around and have to hit different targets. There's a limited amount of melee units that can hit one target at a time. So the numbers in the archer battle are really very critical. Just a few knights encountering and, you know, the usual Delhi expedition. But yeah, as long as Vortex keeps producing knights, I feel like they're a little bit better placed. And honestly, Vortex could just drop an equivalent blue line across the map. It's interesting that he hasn't yet done so. Lucifron is choosing to wall on the top side of the map. Both Rus players building walls behind each other, quite funnily enough.
Yeah, and I mean, these fortified palisades obviously going to help them out a little bit. Obviously, not like Delhi. They can't use foot soldiers to do that, but I like the point that you had, especially with this middle wall segment here that I'm highlighting on the screen. That was the one that was about half to 75% done, knowing you get a little bit of that bonus damage torches do on blueprints, and that little bit of extra time. It looked like B and Anatan's sacred site was about 75% before they had to vacate, and that could really turn the tide of the battle. And if we take a look at current resources, it's going to be Lucifron and Vortex that are benefiting. And in a 2v2, it seems to be more of an exponential difference, because not only is the deli player getting 150, but you're still getting a little bit for your teammate as well, and you can see their map control just that much better. They're going to get that sacred site over here on the eastern part of the map, and it looks like Vortex already has a scholar with Lucifron's knights over here on the north, so this sacred site count could get 3-0 pretty quickly.
And it just snowballs, right? It just snowballs, and it's not just that you sort of got the sacred site; it's the fact that you killed 2 scholars from the other Delhi player, and the Delhi player doesn't have the gold income. Delhi doesn't spend gold on anything except making scholars, in the feudal age at least. Losing those scholars mean you don't have to mine more gold, get more scholars. He has 0 on gold right now at 10, so this is going to be pretty rough. Uh, on the other hand, he did decap the sacred site at the center, so that's something. Vortex did drop some balls on the east side. Would have liked to see him drop the sacred, ball off the sacred site in the center while he was there. Nonetheless, he didn't make a mistake again. To be fair, I guess walls are not going to be that big a factor when the number of spearmen being made is this much.
Right, and I mean, I remember talking to somebody actually in the Rising Empires chat yesterday about having the amount of spearmen that you need in order to counter knights, and it's usually in a 2-to-1 mass, so if he has a decent amount of spearmen, that's really going to help him out. But over on the south side, Anatan and Vortex getting into it, bunch of spearmen, bunch of knights, no cavalry units here. It looks like these spearmen, these pokeboys, are just deciding to poke at one another, and these archers will end up going down. Looks like maybe about 3 or 4 went down in that battle. But over on the north, where B and Lucifron are going at it, seems to be mixed up in a little bit of 1v1s. We have these orange knights, these early knight creamsicles in orange color, trying to decap the sacred site from Lucifron, not getting there just because of that little bit of militia that's over here on the north side. So it's gonna make 3DB back up just a little bit more, and you know, for every second that sacred site, we just saw it there on the right side of your screen, easy plus 25 for Lucifron, and if he's able to, and a little bit more for Vortex, of course, and if he keeps continuing to get that map control, he's gonna be just fine. And not only with these walls, they're not only controlling the sacred site, but they're controlling and making sure their home base isn't getting raided as well.
Absolutely, you want to sort of. APM is a resource, and of course, the less APM you have to deal with in worrying about raids, the better the situation will be. We did lose quite a lot of knights there with the militia pull. I don't know. I would love to see the destroyed value statistic come back for team games. On the other hand, again, it's really turning into 2 separate 1v1s on other sides, on either side. But the number of sacred sites for Kosan Pasas is just 1 less. One more than the number of sacred sites for 3D.
Right, and that's most important too. Now that you just told us the sacred site count and the amount of snowball that's actually going to happen for these Delhi players. There was a fight going on with Anatan and Vortex. All the foot soldiers, all of them getting that enhancement from the Tower of Victory, but it looks like Vortex was able to reign the victor in that one. I want to highlight just a little bit. Looks like about 25-ish archers from Anatan and about 24 from Vortex, and even though the numbers are kind of the same, there's a difference in the sacred sites throughout the duration of the game, and because of that, Vortex was able to go up to Castle Age Compounded Defender. I'm going to look at it just a little bit so you guys can see what landmark, but we have another creamsicle engagement over here on the north side. Looks like a lot of knights from B ended up going down. Lucifron, having that wooden fortress, going to be able to help him out over there, trying to get a decap on the sacred site, but there's just too many knights from Lucifron. There's too many militia. I think Lucifron, to be honest, when it looks like from both of these players, I think Lucifron is doing a better job of hitting the Kremlin button than B. What do you think?
Well, the problem was that, yeah, I feel like B is saving up for something here, and saving up for a decisive push more than Lucifron, who seems to be more proactive about using those Kremlins to make the numbers matter. And the problem is, again, it snowballs, right? The moment you... Oh no, that village is dead. The moment you win one fight, you're more likely to win the next one and the next one, because assuming both players are spending equal resources, you're going to have more knights to start with. And it's just such an expensive unit to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Vortex, just because his economy is so incredible with these sacred sites. He's able to be in a couple places at once, and Vortex on the north side. We have another knight engagement here. B does not have enough knights to take this, and Lucifron does have his brother's spearman over here that's going to help him take down a couple of knights as well. And you talked about the snowball effect. As of right now, sacred sites still being 2-1. I think instead of a snowball, we're going to see more of an avalanche in a little bit, because Vortex now has access to his own heavy cavalry. Lancers are going to be coming out from Vortex, and these archers, even though they have that bonus of range damage, still not going to be enough for these Lancers. They're going to hit 1 damage a pop on them, so you can have 50 archers in one of these battles, and it is just not going to matter. Wall's going to come down. 3 Lancers, and it looks like a horseman over here, a 4th Lancer. Some of them were playing red light, green light, it looks like, but able to take down a couple archers and back up. So that is going to be a safe sacred site for Anatan, but you got to be thinking for these players, for the 3DB clan, when are you going to get up to castle? You can't stay perpetually in feudal against the Castle Age Delhi Baron.
No, it's difficult, and Anatan's gold income is honestly just that sacred site up there. He's quite some distance from Castle. B is kind of looking to maneuver towards it, but he's still making so many knights that the food income will take him 2 or 3 minutes to get up to Castle once he stops producing. So a useful trick, of course, to find out how long it'll take you to get to Castle if you stop producing is just obviously find out how much you make, and you can do the math. But speaking of doing the math, I'm doing the math on these numbers for this fight over here, and it doesn't look good for Anatan.
No, it does not. Not enough spearmen in there. Obviously not at that 2-to-1 ratio. Castle Age Lancers and early knights from Lucifron going to continue to make up the front line, do a good job of taking some damage from these archers. Back line from Anatan, excuse me, pretty well preserved until that east side of the flank is able to get a hold on this range mass. More spearman reinforcements coming in from Vortex. Front line of the 3D clan has deteriorated, and these archers have got to back up with only that 6 damage. It looks like 3DB hitting the Kremlin button, getting some militia in here, and I think just based on this part of the game, trying to prevent that avalanche from starting, that Kremlin button kind of turns into an oh shit button, just to create a little bit of front line, but the militia go down just because B is still in the feudal age. Those militia are going to be kind of squishy, and even though they do that extra to cavalry, it's not going to be enough. Archers continuing to back up for Lucifron. Military count of 21 for Anatan. He has a military count of 28, but it's all about population efficiency. There's not a lot of archers over here, just because of the amount of damage that these archers can really do. His military count is continuing to suffer, and based on the actual efficacy of these archers at a near 0 value.
Yeah, great job in mentioning the fact that the archer numbers for Anatan are not looking so hot. Like if you imagine him going to Castle, getting veteran, getting the +1 upgrade, suddenly that huge archer number looks a lot harder to hit than this feudal archers, which are really struggling. And it might look like as if, oh, you threw away some knights for pointless archers, but that's not the case at all. These archers are pointless now, but in Castle that may not be the case. Now back to only 10 archers from Anatan. He had 40 archers at one point. Like back to 10, it becomes much harder to see his way path, his way clear to recovering from there. Quick note, unfortunately Vortex had his veteran archer upgrade queued behind a massive bunch of archers. It's only started researching now.
Well, that's not going to help too much, but I think in the context of this battle, I mean, not a lot of archers anyway. I'm seeing 8 archers from Vortex, and now the archers from Anatan are just getting engulfed pretty much by all of these knights. B's doing his best job of trying to produce. It looks like I only see 3 stables over here continuously pumping out knights, but I think it's not going to be enough. Now Lucifron of the Rus hitting Castle Age and hitting the High Trade House. And I was going to mention something about the High Trade House for how much gold, but you know what? We just don't have time. It was Castle Age versus Feudal Age, so Anatan and B taking the loss on this one. Pretty good showing by the Spanish brothers, though.